if your company is unsuccessful, any name is a bad name. And if your company is successful, any name kind of grows on people and becomes a good name. Like, think about Apple. That's such a strange company name. It's just fruit. Like, imagine calling a company banana.
Welcome to Access, the tech industry's inside conversation, part of the Vox Media Podcast Network. And as always, I'm here with my lovely co-host, Ellis Hamburger. Ellis, how are you doing?
I'm well. It's a little bit of a rainy day here in LA, which means I'm in a really bad mood.
You seem okay. Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, we were in Laguna Beach with the kids, as I described to you, babysitting / butlering for a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So yeah, nothing like starting Monday tireder than Friday.
I just worked all weekend. I'm still in indie media hustle bro land.
Yeah, how does it feel to be out on your own, hustling when you're your own boss?
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I can't blame a boss anymore. Not that I really did that before, but yeah, it's weird to know the buck stops with yourself.
I mean, you seem to be a pretty demanding boss, Alex. I think you've been working every weekend since you started Sources.
I hold
and
myself
the pod.
to a pretty high ethic, I guess. Everything feels so important right now. I'm so excited by what we're doing, both like with the pod and then with Sources, my newsletter, and I just want it all, man.
I'm so excited about AI right now.
It's amazing.
The possibilities are like endless.
Man, we launched the show a month ago. Isn't that wild?
It is. Never thought I'd have a show.
Well,
but now look at us.
Now you do. Now we're soon to be famous podcasters. And by the way, our guest today is Carl Pei, the CEO of Nothing, really fascinating company. The first indie smartphone company of the last decade that's thriving and growing and doing a lot of interesting things, both on hardware and software. Ellis, you worked with Carl a while ago, right?
Yeah, I think it was like almost a couple of years ago at this point. We just kind of had some high-level strategic convos around the time when I started meeting.
Just some high-level strategic convos, some strategery.
Yeah, no comment. Yeah, it was a while ago at this point. I guess I forgot to ask him if he thought it was all bullshit or if it was actually valuable.
Well,
I guess we could save that for the next episode.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I guess back to the pod, we've had a wild month. We decided to do this together in the spring, and then we were like, we'll figure out when we're going to do it. And then a bunch of stuff kind of lined up, and then we went from like no name to launching the show in a month. And now we've done 4 episodes, and it feels like time is a blur. Like, do you feel like I don't know, do you feel like it's been fast, or do you feel like this has been a grind?
Yeah, I mean, I never imagined I would be getting back into the content grind, but I do think weekly is certainly better than daily. I mean, how often are you doing your newsletter? Like, I do not envy you. Like, every time Sam Altman says something, you have to like wake up in the middle of the night and start writing in your notebook or whatever you do. I don't know if you have any like agentic alarm or like some guy that walks in and smacks you awake whenever
I'm working
Sam
on
Altman
it.
says anything.
Just a bucket of cold water pouring on me when Sam Altman
Yeah, I mean,
tweets.
it's nice though, for better, for worse. It forces you to stay up to date, to keep those relationships going, keep those opinions opinionated, knowing what's happening. But yeah, I mean, hey, I'll say this. It's better than the Business Insider weekly slideshow meeting that I used to have to do every single week. That was a weekly grind that I do not miss at all.
Oh, man, a different era. Yeah. So yeah, you're going to start seeing us kind of resharing on socials some clips from past episodes, just since we're still a new show, we're growing, and we've had Zuck, Dylan Field, Avi Schiffman, the Friend CEO, whose billboards I'm seeing more and more now everywhere in Los Angeles, and Riza Martin, most recently from Hux, creator of Notebook LM, which I got a lot of great feedback on that episode, by the way. People loved her sharing her story with us, which I thought was really cool of her to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear that if you are down to share yourself as a founder, people look up to you. They want to learn to be like you, to have success like you. I mean, I feel like one of the clips that resonated most was Riza's moment of uncertainty at 4 a.m. about should I leave Google. I grew up, without much. Now I'm making good money at Google. How could I leave to start my own thing? And her husband was just kind of this rock for her, supporting her in doing that. And I mean, that's what you like to see, going viral online, not just Shrimp Jesus, right? Like the motivational stuff, the fun stuff, the moments of like people actually being fragile, real people, especially when founders often just kind of pretend that they're perfect and bulletproof.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nice to have that moment on the show.
Yeah. If you think you're perfect, don't come on Access. Yeah, that's our new motto. No, we're also in the fortunate position where people are so interested in the show and what we're doing that we're pretty booked out. We've got amazing guests lined up through December at this point. I don't want to tease too many, but I do think there's one we want to tease because she launched this last week and you had a pretty big hand in that. So why don't you talk about it?
Yeah. Her name is Eugenia. She was the founder of Replica, the OG AI relationship service. And now she has created something new called Wabi. And so we kind of worked together on the positioning and also the new teaser website. So I think the story was a cool one. I mean, it's certainly a dangerous one with how sensitive Apple has been about alternative apps and app stores over the years. I know that was something that was like very dangerous to navigate in the Snapchat years, with creating apps inside of apps. Apple really doesn't like when you create apps inside of apps. And so anyway, Wabi allows you to plug in your context from your life, whether it's your email, your calendar, other aspects of yourself, and create little generative apps. And I think the thing that was kind of most exciting to me about it is that they are simple, but on the other hand, it's like when they can be simple, it means that you don't need 500 people to make a new app. And there's no ads, there's no crazy notifications, there's no stupid growth hacks, there's no features in every corner of the user interface that you don't actually want. And so it in some ways lines up, I think, with Carl's philosophy as well, that we're going to talk about with the new essential AI operating system. A lot more things on your phone, including apps, kind of generated in real time or proactively for you. And I think Wabi is heading kind of in a similar direction. We'll see, though. I mean, are those apps going to be good quality? Do they actually work? Remains to be seen.
Two things. I'm reminded of the early Apple, there's an app for that. Now it finally seems like there's an app for everything, maybe with AI, right? And then the other thing I'm thinking of is like Wabi Sabi. How Wabi Sabi inspired is this company?
It's funny. I think spiritually, but aesthetically, maybe not so much. I think a lot of shiny orbs. Whereas I think if, you were to hear it's Wabi Sabi, you're like, oh, these apps are made of wood and clay with nice patinas and aged cracks inside them. But no, it's not that. I think it's more the spirit of life changing, I would say, as it goes, as opposed to, an app that's maybe set in stone, because you can customize these things and remix them and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Most people's home screens, I mean, certainly my home screen, the only new apps that have entered my home screen in years are like the daycare app that is, hate to say, the worst app that's ever been made, that now has a spot on my home screen. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, as Carl and Eugenia both say, the apps we all use are increasingly made for 1 billion people, not for us. So what does that software landscape start to look like when things can be a bit more bespoke? Whether that is in the hands of, everyday people who are creating apps now that they can vibe code them on their own, or the OSs are doing it for them. I mean, I think that'll be interesting.
Well, speaking of literally everything we've been talking about, apps on home screens, Sam Altman tweeting,
Are you about to do
software.
it again? Are you about to bring up OpenAI again?
Right before we started recording, I got an alert that Sam says.
So you do have the alerts.
I do. Of course I have the alerts. I got an alert that ChatGPT is getting porn later this year. I think Sam's calling it erotica. But you know what? I think I finally understand what all the GPUs they're trying to get her for. Is they're about to light up personalized porn at scale in your chatbot.
Well, that's the joke, isn't it? That porn's always on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
The Blu-ray versus HD DVD. We know who won that war. Porn did. And Blu-ray.
Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. I just thought that was pretty interesting. But
It is kind of like a funny tension, isn't it? I mean, if you look at like when Tumblr was acquired, they have to delete all their porn, then they have to add it back. Are we being kind of puritanical about it? Or are we saying, oh, it's about internet freedom? I mean, it's one of those things that people just can't seem to make up their minds about.
yeah, well, everyone who's concerned about the AI bubble, I think turning porn on in ChatGPT might pay for everything. So I think we're going to be okay.
It just may. It just may. Especially when your porn operating system is optimized for all of your kinks proactively. I mean, there's no reason to believe that isn't coming at this point, right?
Yeah. I could have made a joke there, but I'm not going to. Well, okay, let's get into this conversation with Carl from Nothing.
Support for Access comes from Notion.
Ellis, you're a Notion Power user, right?
Oh, yeah.
I've been a Notion Power user for years. And when we had 1 month to bring Access into reality, Notion helped us track our guest database, to-dos, and notes all in one place. And that is the truth.
That is the truth. We run this show on Notion. And you know what? They just introduced Notion agents. They're almost like teammates that can use Notion with you. They can draft, organize, and execute across your workspace and keep your work moving.
We'll talk more about how we use Notion later. But for now, try Notion and agents for free at notion.com/Vox. Support for Access comes from Warp. Warp is a top-ranked coding agent and one of the fastest-growing AI companies. Trusted by over 700,000 developers and 56% of the Fortune 500, Warp is redefining how software gets built. It understands your machine, stack, and codebase, combining the power of a terminal with the interactivity of an IDE, giving you a tight feedback loop with agents to prompt, review, and ship production-ready code. Find out why developers save an average of 5 hours a week. Try Warp free or unlock Pro for just $5 at warp.dev/access.
Carl, we're so excited to have you. It feels crazy to start a phone company these days. And so I would love to know why you did it and also a little bit about your backstory. How did you come to being the CEO of Nothing? Is creating a competitor to Apple and Google something that you always thought about, or was this something that came later in life? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, maybe I'll start with my background and how I got here. Now that you asked this question, I remember when I was like super young, maybe 13, 14, and I had a Nokia 3310, and I was thinking, all these phone companies, like if I was a manager at one of these companies, I would make some different decisions and I'll make it better. So I think that's kind of where a lot of it started. And but I do have to say Apple was also a big inspiration for me. I grew up in Stockholm, Sweden. I remember I was the first kid in my school to have the iPod, and when I got it, all the boys in the school were like standing around me looking at it. I also got the first iPhone. It was super complicated because it was a AT&T exclusive, so I had to have a friend in the US buy it for me, and I think pay a $450 cancellation fee, and then jailbreak it so I can use my non-US SIM card. But I think these kind of early experiences with cool technology made me really excited about this industry. And back then everything was progressing so quickly. Every generation was much better than the previous one. Okay, so what happened with my iPod was I loved it, but it broke. It broke 1 week after the warranty ended. And back then Apple didn't have like official business in Sweden. They were selling through a distributor. So I emailed the distributor. I'm like, hey, I'm a kid. My iPod broke just 1 week after the warranty ended. Can you help me? And they said, unfortunately, according to our policy, you only have one year warranty. So I couldn't really afford another one. And so I got kind of pissed off because like it's only 1 week. And that summer, I traveled back to China with my parents to visit relatives. And I went to the computer market. And my impression of Chinese products were like really low quality because that's what you see in the news, or what I saw in the news while I was growing up. But I found this MP3 player that I really liked. And it wasn't worse than the iPod. It was called the Meizu. They're not really around anymore. When I went home to Sweden, I created this fan site for this company, and we became their kind of global fan site. We had 70,000 users on our community, and one time when LA Times wanted to write a profile for this company, I was the kind of community fan representative talking about their company. So after university, they actually invited me to join them to help build their international business. And um, originally, I wanted to go to YC or at least apply for YC, but I'm also quite lazy, so I had that offer in my hand. So I just said, "Hey, look, I love these electronic products as well, and this is a company I like." So I moved to China. This was back in 2011, and that's how my career in the smartphone industry started. I worked a little bit there. I joined another company called Oppo, and Oppo started a new brand called OnePlus. I was the co-founder for OnePlus and built out their international business. We grew that business to about $3 billion in 7 years, and 2/3 of the revenue was international. And I was really lucky to have that experience because when we started that company, I was only 24, and getting to use their supply chain and their capital and make a lot of stupid mistakes and learning from them. I'm really grateful I got that opportunity. Um, but after 7 years, we were kind of doing similar things over and over again every year because the business model was like buying components from all our suppliers and just packaging it and kind of selling it and building the software. It was making money and I was making money, but it just felt like very repetitive. And sometimes I zoom out and look at the rest of my life, and I just couldn't really imagine retiring still doing that same thing because I feel like I need something independent that I can really steer because I don't just want to integrate other people's technology and package other people's technology. I also want the chance to define how people use technology in the future. So, long story short, that's why I left after 7 years and started a new company. Nothing.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia for the Meizu, and this thing is cool looking. Wow. Very retro. That's a cool story.
We first need to establish, how did you break your iPod, Carl? Were you doing jumping jacks or what were you doing? I mean, I know it was like the world's smallest hard drive, I think, at the time that was being put in like a consumer product, but it was easy to forget because there was no skip protection or whatever. I mean, it just kind of just worked. The thing was like built like a tank. How did you break it?
I don't know. I think I just overused it. So back then, it took me like 3 hours a day commuting back and forth from school. And I was just listening to music the entire time. And yeah, I think I just used it too much.
You know what's crazy? I feel like it's easy to forget. There was also like a brick breaker game on there as well, right? And I remember I was also the first person at my school to have an iPod. Were you as well, Alex?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, let's go, boys. That's what this is all about. And but that's all people wanted to do on there. I was like listening to the Strokes on repeat, and people are like, I just want to play Brick Breaker.
I was a little bit different. I spent so much time in iTunes making sure the ID3, like meta tags, were perfect and the album art was perfect.
Oh, yeah. You got to clean all the album artwork up because when you rip that shit off LimeWire, it's all fucked up. The metadata is just a disaster.
But were you also editing the metadata on device for your Sony mini disc player, track by track? Or am I beating you on the nerdiness scale with that one? You would have loved this thing, actually. I still have it. It was an old Sony mini disc player. It was neon blue. I mean, do you remember like the buttons on all of those were just dramatically different for every single unit? And we were still like figuring out, what that was going to look like.
Yeah, I never bought a mini disc. Some of my friends had it, but they looked really cool. And now when you look back at those early Sony designs, they were also spectacular. I mean, people don't design products like that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sure that inspired your team. I mean, I feel like even the way that you draw attention to specific parts of your phones and your products, like having like a red accent for like the record button on the mini disc player, I feel like it's so underrated. I guess if you're making something for billions of people, you just end up with the metal glass. But yeah, it seems like you have an opportunity to do something a little different, a little more fun.
It's true. Like in the beginning, we found this picture of the Sony Museum. I don't think it exists anymore. It's a museum in Tokyo where Sony employees would take their guests, and it would be like a full wall of different Sony products. And we said, hey, if in 20 years from now, we can also have a wall of products that we'll be proud to share with our guests, that will be so awesome. And back to your question, why smartphones? Like, that's what I've been doing my entire life. So if I start a startup, I have to do something I'm familiar with. But unfortunately, the thing I'm familiar with is a very tough industry for a startup to break into. So it's been a journey, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that because a lot of founders, they see opportunity in, apps, and there's all these crowded spaces that everyone is building in, especially with AI these days. And doing a new smartphone company from scratch is just extremely ambitious. I was researching Nothing ahead of this, and it's true. I mean, you guys are the only new smartphone company to be started in the past decade. Is that right?
To have survived. There's been a few
To have
attempts,
survived.
but
Okay.
a lot of them failed. It's just like the value chain is very long. So there's so many plates you have to be spinning at the same time for something like this to work. And there's so many reasons that you can fail. I'll give you just one example of something, I think now in hindsight, crazy that we pulled off in the beginning. So all these other companies that started and failed, they really scared our suppliers. So when we were talking to a big manufacturer, they were like, hey, we worked with a couple of startups in the past. They also had great funding, great investors, famous founders, like, better than you, but they still failed. So, we're not going to work with any startups anymore. We're just going to do our Apple and big company business. And back in the day, when these other startups before us were trying to enter the market, the manufacturer would take all the inventory. So the startup doesn't have to, have cash for the inventory. But when it was our turn, because everybody was so scared of working with startups, not only did we have to pay for the inventory, we also had to pay 4 months before getting the product because they just wanted to be 100% sure that they would get paid and make money on the deal. And we were like, holy crap, like, what do we do about this? Because as a startup, you don't have any cash. The thing we pulled off that I'm still really grateful for is one of our sales channels. They believed in us so much because they wanted to sell the products after we make it. They wired the money to us like 4 months before getting the product. Like, they had never done that before, and they had to go to their board for approval. But they did it. But there's many cases like this where we've done stuff that's seemingly very abnormal or very difficult to do in order to even, survive past this stage.
So your supplier was like, I'm sorry, Carl, we just got burned by a situationship with Andy Rubin and his essential phone. How are we going to make this happen? They're like New York landlords, like, we're going to need first month, last month, and deposit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not just one company, right? They were burned by 3 or 4 startups in the past.
Support for Access comes from Notion. Notion is the connected workspace where teams write, plan, track, and ship together. And with Notion agents, those teammates aren't just human. Agents are AI teammates that can complete multi-step workflows end to end, building pages, updating trackers, and moving work forward while you focus on the hard decisions. We even use Notion ourselves.
I use Notion to run my business, meaning from using AI notes during meetings with very verbose founders, creating beautiful client-ready docs, and I even generate my invoices on there. So nice to have it all in one place.
We actually run this show on Notion too. It's how we track our guests, to-dos, and everything we need to get you access every week. The result of all this, less chasing, more reporting, and better conversations on mic. Notion is where the newsroom and the studio meet, and agents keep the work moving. Try Notion and agents for free at notion.com/Vox. Support for Access comes from Warp. Warp is changing how developers code. As a top-ranked coding agent and one of the fastest-growing AI companies, not to mention trusted by over 700,000 developers and 56% of the Fortune 500, Warp is redefining how software gets built. Warp understands your machine, stack, and code base, and is built at the terminal level, meaning it can write code, respond to system events, and even deploy to prod. And their mixed model approach outperforms single model approaches. It's built for the entire software lifecycle, from prompt to production, with the powers of a terminal and the interactivity of an IDE. Warp gives you a tight feedback loop with agents, so you can prompt, review, edit, and ship production-ready code. Find out why developers save an average of 5 hours a week, and see how Warp transforms your coding timelines. Try Warp free or unlock Pro for just $5 at warp.dev/access. That's warp.dev/access. So what is it about Nothing that has led to you surviving, but now also, it seems like thriving? You just raised $200 million. Your sales are like roughly doubling year over year. What did you figure out that no one else figured out? Was there one thing, or was it a lot of things?
There's a lot of things, but maybe to summarize, maybe it's pacing or understanding of the industry and pacing. Like, we knew that the industry was very tough and it's easy to mess up, and we have to do basic capability building in the beginning because there's so many steps actually from having a product idea to shipping it at scale all across the world. So in the beginning, we kind of paced ourselves. We didn't go too crazy on the product definition. If you think about it, our early products were basically products that already existed that other companies have invented and made huge categories. And we just tweaked the design a little bit to appeal to a specific target audience and gradually grew our capabilities from there. I think now we're at a point where, going back to pacing, we have some of those solid capabilities, these foundations in place, which really enables us to take more aggressive steps into the future and take more risk on the product side, for instance.
Give people a sense of Nothing as it exists today, because I think especially people in the US, they don't really know the brand. You're mostly big in Europe and parts of Asia, India. Give us a sense of like who your users are. What's the demographic? Are they mostly Gen Z? Where are they? And then how are you thinking about the US now?
Yeah, we are approaching 5 years old. We're roughly 800 to 900 people. We're approaching $1 billion in sales this year.
If we had an air horn, we'd play that, like the TBPN guys. So that's a huge milestone.
Yeah, thanks. And our users are very young, because when we built this, we were like, it's pretty much impossible to be popular among everybody in the world at the very beginning. So we got to pick a lane. And we found that the younger consumer really resonates with our products. I think that it's coming from a place of wanting to be different, like finding their own identity, not wanting the same products as maybe their parents. And, when we were growing up, Apple was such a cool company. But when these kids today are growing up, it's kind of just another corporate. So they don't have the same brand power among the youth as they have amongst us. So if you look at our users, on average, they're 26. I think Samsung's average user age is like 45 or something like that, and it keeps growing. So I think it's a great place to start. And if we can really serve these consumers' needs really well as they grow up, I think it's going to create a really solid user base for us.
We know Samsung has cornered the market on dudes with belt holsters here in the United States.
Especially with the foldables.
Yeah.
I heard, Carl, you have a view on foldables. Are you warming up to them? I'm holding the new Pixel Pro 10 Fold, and I like it.
I wish I could say you look great with your foldable, Alex, but I can't.
Can just block my whole face here. But just while Ellis mentioned it, what do you think of foldables?
I think it's an interesting product, but probably not for us right now, because if you look at the current state of foldables, the annual shipment volume is about 17 million units, and annual shipments for smartphones is 1.2 billion. So it's a very, very small part of the market. And if we look at who buys foldables right now, it's usually men who are in business.
Who do
So they need
podcasts.
this podcast. They need space to kind of sign documents or read documents. So if we're targeting a more young demographic, a younger demographic, it doesn't really make sense for us. But because Apple is doing a foldable next year, I think that might open up the market. So after their release, we can reassess.
I remember reading something like 87% of Gen Zers in the States have an iPhone. And it's like a status symbol to them, even if they don't necessarily love it or feel a lot of loyalty to it. How are you going to break through that?
It's really tough. And also, every year, the Apple market share grows in the US. And if the young people already, like if you say 87 or 90% of the youth already use iPhones, just think about what will happen when they grow up. It will become a monopoly, right? So I feel like the smartphone business is really tough in the US for us because of these dynamics. And Apple's behavior has definitely not made it easier for us. Kind of, there's a social part, the brand part, but there's also the lock-in effect with iCloud and AirDrop, iMessage, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is making it really hard to switch. So I think US it's a really important market for us going forward. It's already the biggest market for our earbuds and headphones, so our audio products. So we can definitely see that, if there's not the lock-in situation going on, US would be a big market for us on phones as well.
Yeah.
So we see the potential. And as we're now looking into new form factors into the future, I think that for those new form factors, US will be the most important market, because we already see that for our audio products. Why not for our new form factors that are not necessarily competing with iPhone, but they're just brand new products that can be used together with iPhone.
The lock-in thing is really interesting to me because, yes, it is still difficult to switch. Although I would say with cloud and the fact that a lot of apps now easily sync, it's not as difficult as it once was. Also, the porting data over has gotten faster. I remember when it took hours and hours to transfer your data to a new phone, right? And now it's relatively fast. I mean, I just did this with the new iPhone. But, I've been sitting here with this Pixel that Google sent me to try, and it's cool and I want to experiment with it, but I don't want to relearn a decade plus of OS knowledge and just feeling. It's this, I don't know. It's very hard to put into words, but it feels like one of the biggest things to overcome is actually just people being set in their ways. And maybe you can't. Maybe it's very difficult to teach an old dog new tricks, which is I guess I'm an old dog as it comes to phones now. But sounds like what you're saying is if you can get 24-year-olds on board when maybe it's one of their first phones and they haven't been comfortable with iOS for over 10 years, that's the real opportunity. It's not like you're maybe going to switch millennials necessarily over in mass. Is that fair?
It's fair, but I still think we'll have to address the lock-in issue somehow, because if a young person is, chatting in group chats on iMessage with their friends, they don't want to be left out.
Yeah. Well, can we revisit that for a second? I know there was a moment, I don't know if this was just a stunt or if this was a long-term plan, Carl, but you guys actually created your own iMessage solution, right? Can you bring us back to that moment?
Yeah, I think around that time, 2-3 years ago, there was a bunch of companies trying to jailbreak iMessage. I think they were running virtual Macs in the cloud to pretend to be devices that support iMessage. And we had this iMessage problem, especially if we want to target the US. So we worked with one of these startups, and it didn't go very well because
I'm sure that was the first thing on Tim Cook's desk that day.
Yeah.
Your YouTube video.
So it got a lot of interest, but we should have vetted the startup security measures better. So we identified some security issues, and it was a big controversy, and we shut it down within 24 hours. never to be reopened again, because in hindsight, this workaround thing is it's not secure. Um, it's also like not permanent. It's easy to patch on Apple side. So maybe we should just wait until governments around the world force Apple to open it up, because we're already seeing trends with the European Union and DOJ really challenging Apple on some of their behaviors.
Yeah. Is India your biggest market right now?
For phones, yeah.
And followed by what? Because the company's based in London, followed by the UK, Europe?
Followed by Germany, actually.
Germany. Okay. I'm so fascinated in India because there was a story recently where you're seeing like 140+% year-over-year growth there. You're growing in terms of just like general market share awareness too, in a way that a new brand hasn't really done. What is it about India that has worked for you?
We know the market really well. Like even the previous company, OnePlus, was really big in India. And I think now what we're seeing there is consumers are changing. The economy is growing very quickly, and the middle class is growing. And middle class consumers, they want something different from the past. Like when you don't have a ton of money, you want the functional benefits of something. But if you start having more disposable income, you care about other things as well, the kind of emotional benefits of a product. Do I like the design? Do I like the brand? Do I like the software user experience? So we're seeing kind of India shift in this way, and I feel like us as a company, we're pretty well positioned to succeed in this new world of expectations. Whereas if people just care about efficiency, like, can I get the most spec for the lowest price? It's really hard for us, because at a small scale compared to the Apples and Samsungs of the world, we have to pay more for our components. So this demographic shift, or this consumer shift, we're really seeing a lot of traction here.
But you're going for the high end too, right? So like the Nothing Phone 3 launch pretty recently happened in the US a few months ago. And that's priced at like $800. It's just up there with, the base iPhone, Samsung. It seems like now you're really trying to go after the more higher end market. Is that fair?
We have a range of products starting from $200 up to like $1,000, depending on the configuration. On average, we're selling our products at around $350 US. So whilst we have the high-end one, the volume driver is around $350.
And so when you look at all that money you've now raised and looking to the future, I mean, you have a lot of options for how to invest it. You have hardware, software, now AI. How are you thinking about allocating that $200 million you've raised?
We need to be very careful with the money we raised, because I think first of all, we should become profitable. We've been kind of like a ship that's been in the ocean for a long time, for 5 years, and it will be good to just dock the ship so the entire company can feel like how it feels to be a profitable company. And then we can decide to go faster and go harder and kind of set sail again. But I think it's good to just arrive on land and take stock of the situation first. So we're definitely going to be very careful with how we spend our money. But this also enables us to invest into the future. So if we say that our regular business that we have now, the smartphones and the audio products, let's be prudent, let's grow, but let's not waste money here. I think we have a little bit of budget to try new things. And that's where I feel like we're in a sweet spot in terms of scale. Like, we're not small and we're not huge. If we're too small, it's hard to create quality products. Even if your concept is cool, it's hard to have the raw engineering horsepower to actually deliver something of quality, and it's hard to have the supply chain relationships and all that stuff set up to ship it at scale. So I think we definitely have that, but we're also not too big that it's really hard to steer the ship. So I feel like we're in this really interesting sweet spot, and given all the developments in AI right now, there's going to be so many experiments, both on the hardware side and the software side, from all over the place. Startups, Magnificent Seven, everybody's going to start trying new things. And when we started 5 years ago, we said tech was boring and we wanted to make it fun again. I think it's definitely a super fun time. So we're very excited to put our hat into the ring as well and participate in exploring and finding the new form factors of tomorrow.
Support for Access comes from Notion. Most work these days feels like busy work. It's hunting, updating, and coordinating. With Notion AI, you get your own AI team powered by your work and all in one place. It knows your work context, your meeting notes, tasks, calendars, and plans. And now with agents, it actually does the work for you and your team. Anything you can do with Notion, your Notion AI agent can do too. Agent can build pages, structure data, search across your tools, and execute multi-step workflows at your direction.
Ellis, how are you going to use a Notion AI agent?
Honestly, I'm excited to use an agent to turn all my notes into nice, easy interview questions. Ranked by juiciness, of course.
We gotta have it juicy. At the end of the day, Notion is AI that understands the way a team works because it lives inside the same workspace you do. Notion plus agents. Fewer tabs, fewer handoffs, better work. Start for free at notion.com/Vox. Support for Access comes from Warp. Warp is changing how developers code. As a top-ranked coding agent and one of the fastest-growing AI companies, not to mention trusted by over 700,000 developers and 56% of the Fortune 500, Warp is redefining how software gets built. Warp understands your machine, stack, and code base, and is built at the terminal level, meaning it can write code, respond to system events, and even deploy to prod. And their mixed model approach outperforms single model approaches. It's built for the entire software lifecycle, from prompt to production, with the powers of a terminal and the interactivity of an IDE. Warp gives you a tight feedback loop with agents, so you can prompt, review, edit, and ship production-ready code. Find out why developers save an average of 5 hours a week, and see how Warp transforms your coding timelines. Try Warp free or unlock Pro for just $5 at warp.dev/access. That's warp.dev/access.
I know a big next step is what you're calling the Essential OS. I saw that you're targeting 2028, which is a little off into the future. It feels like a lot of the hardware companies, at least, haven't really painted a picture of what phones are going to look like, in part because I think they're afraid to self-cannibalize in some ways, as a lot of the processing power and whatnot moves off your device to some extent. How are you thinking that those devices are going to look in a few years down the road?
Yeah, I think the reason why others haven't thought as much about it is because, I mean, I've been inside of some of those organizations before. They're more like a CPG company, consumer packaged goods company. Like, what are the features we have? What are the features the other competitors have? And how can we sell more than them? And how do we grow our sales every year? And that was the reason I wanted to have something independent on my own, because it would not be a great outcome if we just did that. Like, it would just be following the industry. I wanted to have a chance of really building something unique. The reason why we picked smartphones was also that the smartphone is the most important digital device we have today. It sells the most. It's got 1.2 billion sales a year, and we use it for many hours every single day. So we thought that if we're able to enter this industry, survive, and grow in volume, then we have a great foundation to deploy software and services on top of. So it wasn't like to make a smartphone company. That was never the goal, but the smartphone was a tool that we could possess to create cooler stuff in the future. I don't think the hardware is going to change significantly. I think we're at a era where the hardware improvements are marginal. So every year we'll see, better battery, slightly better cameras.
Not a hand projector is what you're saying?
No.
Probably not.
But the software is really a place where there hasn't been a lot of innovation, if I'm being honest. Like, even in the Palm PDA days, like, it's still a similar UX to now. You have full screen apps, you have app stores, you have home screens and lock screens.
Styluses are even back.
Styluses are back. I think the future is definitely generative UI, because theoretically the phone has a lot of context over you. And why are we all getting the same experience when we're all individual people? We have different needs and different priorities. And beyond generative UIs, it's also going to be a lot more proactive and agentic, meaning that, once we have an intention, once we know what we want to do, the gap should be a lot smaller than currently. Like today, even grabbing coffee with a friend, that's like 5 different apps, right? Some like scheduling, texting, Uber, Maps, etc.
Well, so when you turn those 5 steps into just one user interface with AI, I think some may say you're also kind of abstracting away those services, whether it is the Starbucks app UI, the Yelp app UI, the payment app UI. How do you feel like those companies are going to feel as they kind of get asked by potentially you guys or Apple or now OpenAI as they try to bring them in, say, hey, we're just going to show parts of the UI for you. Maybe there's less opportunity to discover other things in those apps. How do you think those companies are going to navigate that?
It's going to be a complicated path to navigate.
They don't want to be dumb pipes, right?
Yeah, 100%. So on one hand, there's the ecosystem of apps, but there's also the consumer that we need to bring along this journey. But maybe I take the ecosystem first. I think we're also pretty well positioned here because, like, if you're a huge company, they might feel bullied by the huge company who just wants to steamroll them, and they're like, "Hey, this is our API. This is how you need to connect, and go do it." Whereas for us, we can say, "Hey, we don't know what the future is going to be. We think that it might be like this, and we don't know exactly how to work with everybody. We know your brand matters to you. You invested a lot of money into building your brand equity. So let's co-work on something together. And at the very least, it's learning for both sides. You'll learn how you can navigate the new world better, and we can learn how we build the products better."
That's a very diplomatic answer, Carl. It does seem like currently, based on where things are going, your biggest competition on this will probably be Google, just because they're already starting to do some of this. Like the new Pixel has some very lightweight agentic stuff. It'll start like surfacing things from email when it makes sense in text, which is nice. Apple is obviously way behind the 8 ball on this. Maybe they'll catch up, maybe they won't. But yeah, I'm curious how you think about competing with Google, especially because, your phone is based on Android. I mean, Android is open source, but yeah, what is it like competing with Google, and how do you think about them, especially on the AI side, as you're trying to also build this AI OS?
Sometimes being small also has its advantages. Like, we can move faster, we can make decisions faster, potentially take more risk. I think taste is going to matter because when you're introducing people to a brand new way of doing things or using a product, the more beautiful it is and the easier it is to use, the higher the chance for product market fit. And I think we should be humble. We should, ship quickly. Instead of spending 5 years or 3 years on a project, we should spend 9 months to 12 months to test a new form factor. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars, we should spend like 10 million, 20 million to test something out and really be close to the consumer. Like, take the feedback and iterate quickly. I don't think we're going to be able to do a one-hit wonder. Like, I think Steve Jobs did that a couple of times in his career. He reimagined like industries and the first product almost always hit. I don't think we can do that, but if we can't do that, the plan B is to iterate quickly, take feedback, don't spend too much money and move and just ship quickly.
Seems like one of the tenets for your AI approach is kind of looking at memory, like your personal space, personal search, whether that's with the essential space or some of the tenets of the essential OS. How are you thinking about that? Do you feel like that's like uniquely accessible way to get into AI for a lot of people?
I think that's actually the core of what we want to do. If consumers get to learn that the more context I feed into my AI or OS or assistant or whatever you call it, the more utility I get out of that, that's going to be the trigger to give rise to a new array of form factors. Because sometimes you have your phone in your pocket, maybe you're walking, or maybe you're at a dinner. Like the phone is not always there for you. And as soon as people realize that the more context they can feed in, the better output, I think that then new categories will start growing. And I spent some time to think about like 10 years from now, how the world will be and what categories will be popular. I still think phones will be popular. It will still be a billion unit plus industry, simply because there's still hundreds of millions of people on Earth who don't have smartphones. So even if, we in the Western world, we upgrade our phones less frequently, it's still going to be an important device for us. But then you have all these other people who are going to come online and use smartphones. And I really also believe that the new form factors for context capture will be billion plus categories in the next 10 years.
This is like the puck that OpenAI is developing with Johnny Ive, stuff like that.
Stuff like that. Like nobody knows what the perfect form factor is. We're all looking for PMF at this point, but let's see. I mean, something like that, maybe.
For those who don't know, PMF, product market fit.
That's what I thought the talk button was going to be on the new headphones. I was like, oh, I feel like that's kind of like no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, that's going to be the AI button.
We made a tiny step with the talk button. So if you have a Nothing phone and the Ear 3, you can use the talk button to record your ideas into Essential Space.
Yeah. When we were in LA together a few months ago, you were talking to me about the ChatGPT integration you managed to pull off through the headphones, where they're essentially the only headphones that you can talk to ChatGPT without doing, multiple prompts like you have to do on iOS or it's a little jankier on iOS. How are you thinking about ChatGPT though? Because they have the most memory of any AI product right now. I think they really see that as like a key competitive edge for them. They're going into devices. You support ChatGPT in the phone and the headphones right now, but how do you think about that over the next few years? Do you feel like your all's interests kind of collide and your competitors, or do you feel like you can be a platform, a hardware platform for these LLM companies who want more distribution and want more context, and your devices would be the way they would get that?
I think this is a very good question. I think long term, it will be really bad if we just become a hardware company, because if you look at our products and the different components we have in the product, and the different types of companies in our value chain, a hardware OEM has the lowest margin out of everybody. So the chipset maker has higher margins, the OS provider has higher margins, et cetera, et cetera. So it will not be a great outcome if we go through this new cycle that's coming and we end up still being a hardware manufacturer. It's a good place to start, and the only place we could have started, but we shouldn't end there. But that's the long term. In the short term, there's a lot of practical things we need to navigate. So if there's opportunities to partner in a meaningful way with any of these larger companies that can also at the same time provide value to our consumers whilst not blocking us from achieving our long-term ambitions, we definitely be open for that. In fact, we're entertaining a couple of these conversations right now, but it will just be bad to become a hardware company, say in 10 years from now.
So what does that mean though? Does that mean you need your own foundational AI models? Like what does that mean for your AI strategy?
The way I see it is that the models there's so much investment in the models, and there's so much competition between different labs. So one month, one model will be really powerful, and another month, another model will be really powerful. So with our resources, we won't be able to compete. And I think globally, if we look at all these model companies, I feel like they're going to enter a price competition or a price war, which will erode their margins further. I think long term, maybe 2 or 3 companies are going to thrive and the rest will have a very hard time. So this is not a good place for us to invest. And also, if we study the model companies, they're all kind of pivoting to do either deep enterprise or to do applied on consumer. So I guess it's also a signal that they're not seeing a ton of improvements, like step change improvements in the model capability. They need to apply the technology in new ways to help consumers and users. So I think for us, we should focus on applied. and we should focus on apply towards consumers. And the thing that we need to be really great at is to help people capture context and then action on the context. I think that's where we can also build our moat.
I sense that deep enterprise isn't really your passion.
It's a good business, but no, I'm a consumer person. I mean, the entire reason why I entered this space is because I love these products as a consumer.
Yeah, so you definitely have a distinct taste and aesthetic. As you seek to go broader, do you find that the aesthetic is resonating more broadly, or could it actually be turning some people off? I mean, I wear your headphones around all the time, and I love them, but I don't know. People are like, oh, maybe I'll just stick with my AirPods and blend in with the crowd. I know there have been a lot of ads about that as well. How do you balance that? Like trying to, really develop a striking aesthetic. I mean, even the fashion stuff you're doing and the photography stuff you're doing feels kind of high fashion, which traditionally has been kind of exclusive, right?
Yeah, it's also a great question. I think it goes back to the pacing thing I said. Like, when we're just starting out, we have to be super opinionated because even if 90% of the people hate us and 10% love us, that's perfectly fine for a startup that's trying to get a foothold in the industry.
Is that the stat on your end? 90% hate, 10% love?
No, it's just a theory. And if you take a step back and just try and think from first principles, with our current design aesthetic, there must at least be 3% of the world, at the very least, that would find it, would love it. And we're not 3% market share yet. In fact, we're quite far from 3% market share. But I don't know if you noticed, in 2025, we have been evolving our design language a little bit. We've added more metallic accents, slightly toned down the transparency. So it's still very distinctively nothing, but we're seeing an evolution in our design language. And that's kind of our experiment. Like, we know we need to keep growing and we need to cater to more people over time, but we also need to do it in a way where we keep what's different about us and not lose track of our early adopters.
I hadn't really thought about it that way. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the new headphones are kind of more silver, maybe a bit more accessible. I mean, it's tough, isn't it? As a hardcore gadget nerd, you're like, I want to make something that looked like those yellow Sony Walkman headphones from the 80s. I mean, that's what I see when I see these, and I'm like, these belong in the MoMA, essentially. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get you to millions and millions of users.
But our 2026 roadmap still looks very cool and very exciting. So on that side, it's not tough. I'm very excited about our future products.
Talk about this a little bit as most you can, because I was saying, like, even there's a Financial Times story about the recent fundraising. They were like, you're talking about robotics and even integrating into electric vehicles. I assume you're looking at glasses. I assume you're looking at all kinds of wearables. Like, where does the Nothing brand go next? Like, beyond phones and headphones, a watch, like, how are you thinking about all these different categories?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what I can say right now. But
just share us the roadmap.
If we think about the context or the memory being in the middle of a person's ecosystem, then the smartphone is going to be an important part of it, but only one part of it. Glasses is an interesting category. I was really bearish on glasses before because I even went through the pain to do LASIK to not need to wear glasses. I think the bar is very high. I used to think the bar is very high to get somebody to use smart glasses because it doesn't feel comfortable and you really need to provide a lot of utility for somebody to want to use it. But I've been quite surprised actually by the growth of the Meta Ray-Bans. Like this year, I think they're 5 times more sales than last year. And so it's something we're thinking about. We haven't made a decision around glasses, but I'm warming up to the idea.
I think it's fascinating, Carl, how you engage with the Nothing community and customers. And like, you're a YouTuber. You're a very successful YouTuber, which I don't think many smartphone CEOs can say. And something I love is you actually review competing products, which is super unusual. How do you think about just engaging the world as the CEO of a company like this? And doing that? Like talking about competition, for example, is something you just don't see consumer electronics CEOs do very often. So was that something that just was natural to you, or what is it? Is it a strategy?
There's an underlying logic to it. I think my team hates it, but I always say we got to get 10 times more out of the money we invest because we have so little money compared to our competitors. I heard Samsung has $1 billion a year in marketing budget for just the US alone. Like, we're nowhere close to that. So every dollar we spend has to do a lot more. So we have to, and we have a lot of weaknesses as a smaller company in this industry. Like, we have to pay more for our components. We can't have as many engineers as we would like to build all the cool stuff. So we really have to look at all the potential areas where we can turn these disadvantages into advantages. And I think content creation is one of them because like nobody would do it. If you're a publicly listed big company, like it's so easy to say the wrong thing and like it's impossible for them to do. So that's why we should double down here. And we started experimenting with content creation about 2 years ago. I think last year we did about 600 million organic views on our content, mainly short form. And this year we're probably doubling that as well. And next year I'm trying to think of how we get to like 5 billion, like 5x or 4x. But I think this is going to be a really unique opportunity for us, especially as we're targeting the Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Like they spend all their time on these social media platforms.
Do you work on retainer for podcasts who are looking to grow their online views? No, that's super impressive. I mean, is the team that you're hiring for that, or are they just like these like cracked early 20s, like super online people? Like, how do you do that? How do you just organically create billions of views for a brand?
Two ideas have been really helpful. In the beginning, we created these like high-end, like branded, mysterious type of content. And then one day a friend pulled me aside and said, "Hey, what you're doing is kind of cringe. Like you're just a brand trying to sell me things just like every other brand. But, I just want to be entertained. So don't be a brand, why can't you as a brand just be a creator?" So that was a big mindset shift for us. And the second thing for short form was just create a lot of content. Like so far we've basically gone through all our archives, all our long form content we've clipped into short form. And it's just like a numbers game. Sometimes the algorithm likes it and it gets a lot of views. But I think looking into the future, there's just a lot more we can do. Like we don't even have dedicated short form content. Everything is reused. Just dedicated content can help us a lot. We have users all over the world. In some countries, they don't speak very good English or their culture is very different. So in Japan, we just hired a YouTuber who will hopefully join our team very soon and start creating, YouTube native content in Japanese. So we're trying all these ideas to really double down on our content.
Well, at least we know that if the whole phone thing doesn't work out, you have a potential career as a YouTuber.
That's my backup plan.
I feel like the trust you're building just by being more transparent is probably going to come in handy. There's been all this conversation over the last 10, 20 years about consumer privacy and data. And now AI companies are kind of asking for it all and just saying, hey, it's going to come in handy at some point. How do you think about that proposition and how accessible it really is? Like, when's the right time?
Security needs to be raised to the highest strategic level at the company because, or trust. Like it has to be one of the main strategies for the company. Because if we're going to build this memory, like we need people to want to share their memories with us, their context with us. But if they don't trust us, they're not going to do it. And I feel like we have a lot of work to do. We're currently beefing up our security team and our processes internally. But I also think we have a unique opportunity here. As a smaller company, I think we can do things that are more transparent, more down to earth. And through that also help us earn the trust. It's a product question as well. Like when we define the products, like how do we surface things to users in a transparent way? How do we give them more granular controls over what we have and what we shouldn't have? Recently, in Essential Space, we added a feature where you can look at the memories, all the memories you've stored, and you can delete them either one by one, or you can just disable all of it. But we need to do more things like that on the product side as well.
I know another area of controversy is what a photo or a video even is in the world of AI. I know there's this kind of longstanding idea that the cameras sell the phones, but now it seems like the outputs of those cameras are kind of increasingly AI generated. I mean, I know Apple makes every sky blue. Samsung is creating an image of the moon on top of the moon. I mean, how do you think about that moving forward with computational photography and what a photo from a phone even is going forward?
So computational photography, I don't think, is an area where we need to necessarily lead the industry, but we need to keep up with the consumer expectations. What we're doing on the camera side now that we're really focused on is presets. So in our playground, you can upload the presets you made and you can download other people's presets. We work with photographers, but also smaller creators to really make the camera experience more fun. I think that's where we should really focus our energy, because if we're targeting the next generation consumers and they want these, they might want these cool things to play with and share amongst friends, etc.
And I think we only have a little bit more time. I have a burning question. Where did the name Nothing come from? I feel like I work with a lot of startups who are talking about naming themselves or a product, and I say to the founders, all right, are you prepared to say the name of your company 1,000 times this year and 1,000,000 times over the next 5 years? And you say, oh yeah, we're building nothing. I think some of them might initially be like, I'm not so sure about that. But now I feel like I've really grown to love it. I mean, how did that come about?
Like, names are important because you have to live with it for perpetuity. But they're also not that important in the sense that if your company is unsuccessful, any name is a bad name. And if your company is successful, any name kind of grows on people and becomes a good name. Like, think about Apple. That's such a strange company name. It's just fruit. Like, imagine calling a company banana. So I think it doesn't really matter that much if we're going to build a successful company. But it was really hard to find a name in the beginning. We even acquired the name Essential in the beginning because we wanted to name the company Essential. Because the word just was such a beautiful word and it had a lot of great meaning. But then we thought, hey, we should probably not do that. We should probably have our own legacy that we build. And it was really hard to come up with a name. So Nothing kind of came out of frustration because we couldn't come up with anything better. Let's just call it Nothing. And when I said Nothing, we all kind of liked it. And here we are. And the lawyers hated it. Every time I have an interesting name, the lawyers are always like, no, you can't register this name, but we got it through. Recently, we have a joint venture in India where we're building a factory. And I said, let's call it the factory. And the lawyers, again, were like, hey, you can't just call it the factory. But I'm hearing some good news on that front. So maybe it'll be the factory.
Oh, wow. The factory lives.
You have
Hopefully.
to love watching the LinkedIn influencer dudes try and learn something from every new tech story. They're like, what can we learn from the name ChatGPT? It's like, either the name is actually a stroke of genius because it's so tech-centric that it's completely transparent about what it is. But I think I'm with you, Carl. It's kind of incidental more than anything.
Yeah, I think it doesn't matter. There's so many terrible names out there.
My main criteria I tell people for naming is that it has to actively be not terrible. Once it is out of the terrible zone, it's kind of in neutral. It's just kind of a lever. I mean, I don't know if you thought of this as well, but when we were talking about the name Access for this podcast, I mean, there's certainly some baggage with that name, especially in media. But I was like, that's just going to look like really fucking cool as a logo when we get a designer to do it. And then we bring the designer in and he's like, wow, what a word. He's like, I could do so much with this word. And I mean, the Nothing dot matrix, I mean, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it works. As soon as you see the word Nothing in the dot matrix logo.
I like Access. I'm sure it will be a great name once the pod grows.
Yeah. Well, Carl, we appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thanks for nothing, Carl.
Now, you just had to do that, didn't you?
I did. I'm a dad now. We're new here, so please follow, like, subscribe. You know what to do on all your platforms of choice at Access Pod, including YouTube, where we have full video of the show.
If you like this episode, please leave a 5-star review, not less than 5, and a thumbs up, if that's also what the platform is asking. It means a lot. It helps the show get seen by more people. Please subscribe everywhere you get podcasts.
You could find Alex's newsletter at sources.news, and you could find me at Hamburger on Twitter and at meaning.company.
Access is part of the Vox Media Podcast Network. Our producer is Shiraz Dumais.
We will see you next week. Bye. Thanks to Notion for their support of Access. What does Notion and their Notion agents actually do? How about track beats, sources, open record requests, and fact check? An agent can spot conflicting dates, flag missing citations, and even tee up follow-ups. And it could also even run the show. Guest research, run of show, edit checklists, asset library, and delivery. You could tell Agent to prep for Thursday's taping, and it'll assemble a brief from notes and links, fill the rundown template, and ping everyone who needs to be in the studio. That's useful. So yeah, it can do all that and more, whatever your workflow. See for yourself and try Notion and Agents free at notion.com/Vox. Support for Access comes from Warp. Warp is a top-ranked coding agent and one of the fastest-growing AI companies. Trusted by over 700,000 developers and 56% of the Fortune 500, Warp is redefining how software gets built. It understands your machine, stack, and codebase, combining the power of a terminal with the interactivity of an IDE, giving you a tight feedback loop with agents to prompt, review, and ship production-ready code. Find out why developers save an average of 5 hours a week. Try Warp free or unlock Pro for just $5 at warp.dev/access.